Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I wanted to talk about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in terms of my full playthrough and what I've learned so far. So this is kind of a review, consider it an informal review. And first of all, disclaimer, this game is rated teen. In fact, in Europe it's rated, it's recommended that only, 16-year-olds should be playing this game and nothing less. So if you're a kid under 13, please stop watching the video right now. The Gamey Daddy channel is for grown adults. And so you're not supposed to be here. So bounce. Thank you very much. Now, to jump into what I want to talk about today, I wanted to quickly highlight a few things about this game and then we'll move on. So I'm going to talk about the story and the plot. I'll talk about gameplay. I'll talk about just a few things and maybe talk about future aspects of the game. There's no script to this video. I've done one scripted review. I sounded like a robot through the whole thing, so I haven't listened to it. I don't know if I want to do scripted reviews for video games. Maybe I do. Maybe I'll try it again. But for this game, I'm just a pure fan, and so I'm just going to give it to you guys as, it comes to mind. So first of all, the Jedi game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, is a game about Cal, who is a Jedi that's been somewhat cut off from the Force because of a series of unfortunate events that have pretty much transformed his life, changed his perspective and his view on the world out there. And you playing as this character, what you're doing is you're on a journey of discovery, and even while you're on a journey of discovery, you eventually recover a lot of lost time, a lot of lost relationships. The game is actually well done. They actually make you feel like, there's something really off about this character. And then when things start to come into light, things start to get clear to you who's playing the game. So story, they make you get invested. The game actually has you be invested in a character. There is nothing better than you being invested in a character. One thing I do feel about Tomb Raider in terms of how the character comparisons work is from the 2013 Tomb Raider, 2015 Tomb Raider to the 2018, I feel like you started to lose interest in Lara Croft, or your investment in the character started to fade. But in the terms of Uncharted, you were always invested into Nathan Drake, which is something that stems from good writing. And that is what was brought to this Star Wars game, good writing. In fact, I was watching a video on some of the writers coming together, and these guys were working in close proximity with a lot of Lucasfilm's personnel, just to make sure that the game followed canon and everything was done in a way that was respectful to the Star Wars lore. And I just have to say, they did a wonderful job in how they actually did do the writing. Now, things could have been a little bit more dramatic, but I don't think they were going for flair. I think they were going for something that is core to fandom. And so yes, core to fandom, they won. Now, if they wanted to do anything extra, they could have, but it's better to play your cards the right way. Maybe after this experience, if they're making maybe DLC expansion, or maybe they're making another game because now they've established, this particular title in terms of story, now we can give them more leeway and say, okay, can you guys add a little bit more flair to your story, because we're now in video game world. We're not necessarily in the whole film or animation aspect of things. And so I will give them, in terms of story, I would say this game, is pretty much an 8 out of 10. Not because, I'm taking the 2 points because I'm saying that there could have been a little bit more drama. Maybe that would have hit a 10 out of 10 for me. The other games that I play in terms of story, they usually add some intrigue in it, but this game just kind of followed a linear pace, which I think was done well. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to go for that 10-10, you really have to push the envelope a little bit. Other than that, in terms of all of that, the discovery, the story, the way he meets his allies, the way he becomes a full Jedi, because I don't want to spoil it, but he eventually, it's like going from boy to man. That's what this game, I think, is about. I mean, some people may say that sounds chauvinistic. Get out of here. You know what I'm talking about. It's the maturity journey of somebody who was once a Padawan, and having a lot of, unfortunate events that pretty much displaces him, eventually finding himself. And that is what this game is about, and I think they did that very, very well. The characters I did enjoy. Initially, I didn't know what to make of them, but then over the course of the game, it started to make sense who they were, because their stories felt genuine. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I would say I thought, this is probably some kind of cheesy characters, but eventually, once you're progressing through the game and you start to see reasons why the characters were doing what they were doing and why the characters were in the positions that they were, the events, the circumstances, it made sense and it provided closure. So that is the story of this game without any spoilers, and just letting you know that it is a solid story. I think it was well done. The next aspect of this whole discussion that we're having is going to be gameplay. In terms of gameplay, I think the gameplay is actually pretty good. I don't think it's like the greatest gameplay I've seen in my entire life. I will say, as a Jedi person, I enjoyed the Jedi aspect of Star Wars, because that's usually where a lot of the action is. When those lightsabers start to fly, that's what I come to see in Star Wars. I'm not there for people to just talk about diplomacy. I want to see conflict happen in terms of, film or maybe in video game. And I think they did a wonderful job in how you can actually use your lightsaber, customize it, do all kinds of fun stuff, make it look pretty good. And your lightsaber remains the same in the cutscenes. I like the way they did that, in some of the cutscenes. Even my wife pointed out, she said, "Oh, your lightsaber really does stand out in this entire sequence that just happened." I was like, "Oh yeah, cool." And it was nice to, customize the lightsaber and, talk about colors and all that stuff. Really nice addition to the game, nothing distracting. Now, another thing a lot of people have talked about or have complained about are, pretty much the way the game designs. One of them, anyways, is how the game designs its map, the way its map system is. Now, I will say the map system does feel a little like weird, if not very weird in some cases. Oh, Dathomir, oh my goodness. But we have to preface it by saying perhaps this map is probably a representation of some ancient, because except for some places, almost all the locations you go to have an ancient feel to them. And so perhaps they're trying to map this ancient place, with their, prevalent technology that's there, and the technology is able to kind of help you with that, because a lot of the maps are multi-layered. They have different strata, there are different levels to the map, so it's not necessarily somewhat of a linear topography. You'll be climbing, you'll be running on walls, you'll be doing all kinds of fun stuff. This is the way the landscape for a lot of the places were. So yes, sometimes the maps were hard to read, but it's a 1 hour issue for if you get the wrong turn. You got to do a full circle in some cases. What I did for myself was, whenever I missed a turn and I looked on the map and I saw that where I was going, I didn't understand where it was, I just shut off the game. I just shut off the game, left the game for a little bit, and then came back to the game. That way I didn't get frustrated trying to run around in circles. That's why I took my time to play it. So my review is kind of one of the later reviews, but that doesn't bother me. I just took my time and I enjoyed the game. So that experience, necessarily, I was able to avoid the frustration that came with it. Other things too was like combat, lightsaber combat. I don't know. My experience with it is not necessarily the greatest. I don't like the Dark Souls, whatever. A lot of people talk about Dark Souls and Sekiro and Neo and all that stuff, and I don't like that combat style. I mean, I play Mortal Kombat, burned hours and hours on it. And so I do like fighting games, but I think the best kind of combat, and from a perspective of how it's done right to appeal to both Dark Souls and non-Dark Souls players, was done in God of War. God of War does not have any kind of parry meter. You can parry all day long, and you can, what I mean? So there are no limitations to what you can do. Now, I feel like a Jedi having a limitation on how many parries they can have, to me, I just thought that's lame. Some people may say, oh yeah, but that's part of fighting games. And I was like, get that nonsense out of here. Jedi is supposed to be super duper amazing. You know what I mean? But I feel like the developers wanted to go with this. I have to respect their decision. I'm just being petty about it. But I will say, in terms of how they've developed this game had to take bite sizes of different aspects of the game. So gameplay, story, and all that. The game necessarily wanted to kind of just keep things even. And so if that was their goal, I think they did a good job. Now, even though I may not like the combat, in that sense, I will say though that the combat was polished, because it was just a different combat style. So for those who may like that kind of combat, they'll be seeing themselves in the rating of this combat as the 10 out of 10 type fighting, or whatever that is. I'm on the side where I'm like, 6 out of 10 for generosity, because I just could not really understand how he wielded his weapons. Like sometimes, you push the weapons multiple, you push your attack button multiple times, you get some moves that come out. And I guess you can also put that on me too. I could have, kind of practiced a little bit how the weapon wielding worked, but it just wasn't clear to me because I'm just a casual in the way I look at these games. But then if I compare with the, another game that does have some combat aspects to it, God of War, Kratos is just a beast in his combat. So how his weapons work, how they, I guess it's industry standard at this point, and we have to just point out those things by themselves. But nonetheless, it's just a game. But this is just my observations. Now, some people may disagree as well, and I want to hear in the comment section. Let me know. And then we're gonna move on to world traversal mechanics. How he traverses the world. I would say climbing mechanics, the animation felt a little off. I'm comparing in terms of God of War climbing mechanics, Uncharted 4 climbing mechanics. This game needed to do some work on how the character moved. He just moved like a little crawling machine on the wall. Now, I guess they probably wanted to just not emphasize a lot of that in terms of animation, so whatever. But hey, in terms of a $60 product in 2019 versus two games that I've referenced that were out years prior, which had better climbing mechanics, I feel like this game could have gotten something of that nature in there. Now, other things like, blocking and deflecting, bullets and, using the force, those were excellently done. The way you discover your force powers, not the skill tree, because you have a skill tree, you think the skill tree is going to have everything that you need to do as you start to go through the game. But the skill tree is just a skill tree. Eventually, you're going to find out that you do have force powers that you're going to discover along the story. You're not even going to know when you're discovering them. You're just going to find yourself in a place where after a few minutes, you have now been able to recover that power. So it's something that it's a skill that he already had, but had lost. And so he recovers, most of these skills. And then over time in the game, these skills then eventually start getting to the point where you can cross them over with your other skill abilities. And I feel like they did a very good job in the merging of these. And then the wall running mechanics, absolutely phenomenal, very fluid, something very amazing. Respawn found a way to put running mechanics from their Titanfall game into a Star Wars game. I have to give them props for that. That is a signature world traversal move from Respawn Studios. They have done a wonderful job in letting you feel like you can, do that the wall traversal. But I have to say, it is superior in first person versus third person, but I will take it any way that any way that they deliver it. Okay, now in terms of all of that, we're gonna finally look at the the ending and maybe perhaps future of this game. And for somebody like me, I played the game. I started out on Jedi Grandmaster, but I was like, well, if I want to finish this game in a decent amount of time and kind of give it, an informed opinion, I need to turn down the difficulty. So I went all the way down to the easiest difficulty, because to me, the fighting was not fun anyways. It wasn't like your God of War fun fighting. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to tone this thing down because it's not my main focus. My main focus is to enjoy the story and kind of see how the game progresses. And that was enjoyable to me. So I spent about 22 hours playing the game. I will go back and play on the Jedi Grandmaster. Even though I don't like the fighting, that is not an excuse to not learn it and be proficient at it, because like I said, the future of this game seems to me very bright. If the developers choose to add DLC, this is definitely going to be something that makes the game takes the game to the next level. And the DLC will be predicated on, you know, the way the game ended. The way the game ends, you know, has you, the main character, having brought together these allies who now want to continue to be a force that's, you know, that keeps taking the fight to the Empire, keeps doing some good in the universe. So I think that is the way for them to continue to go. If they're adding these episodes, maybe bringing something that's an extra 20 minutes of, I said 20 minutes, an extra 20 hours of gameplay every year, they can add that to the game, because the game already has a solid basis and a solid foundation, and they can continue doing this because Star Wars fans are gonna continue being Star Wars fans. They're going to continue engaging in content like this, and the base game will continue to sell and make money if they continue to expand the game, where at some point, if you maybe want to buy the Game of the Year edition, you're probably going to be, you know, if they make this game anything like that, you're probably going to be seeing a game that probably has the scale or close to the scale of maybe The Witcher 3. I genuinely think that this game does deserve that, because we have not seen a very good Star Wars game in the past few years. And since this game is already in the place that it is, where things are already good for it, I think a DLC package that is recurring and consistent, I think that's probably the way to go. Now, that would depend on a lot of things, because it might be more expensive to do things like that, or just package everything and have a Jedi Fallen Order part 2, you know, game. So that's all dependent on what the development team wants to go with. But I think DLC is actually their best way, or maybe even another episode like Naughty Dog, the way Naughty Dog did the Uncharted game, I think Lost Legacy, where Nathan Drake was basically not really in that game, or not at all in the game, and they wanted that to actually be DLC, but then they went ahead and released it as a separate episode. This team can also, you know, tap from that, you know, experience and see what that looks like. Maybe call their friends and say, you know, how did that do on sale? How'd you guys, you know, push it out there, and perhaps get something that goes with it. And then finally, I have to quickly say this. This is an EA published game. And a lot of people might say, dude, you're playing an EA game. What do you make of it? Because EA has been, in my opinion, one of the most unfair publishers in this generation, basically, because of a lot of the things that they've done in the past. And to that, I say, yes, I do understand. I mean, in that sense, but the truth is, this is a game done by a studio called Respawn Studio. This is a game that started by somebody who is respected in the gaming industry, and the vehicle for his publication just happens to be EA. And I think their studio has always been committed to helping fans and to entertaining their gamer and their player base. And this game shows that respect. It shows the respect to the lore, shows the respect to the gameplay, shows the respect to the players, and we don't see any microtransactions. We don't see any kind of crappy practices in the game. It's a full, complete game, and I guess that just puts the case to rest that this studio understands what it wants to do. Now, other studios under EA, I don't know how much pull EA has. I don't know how they manage those studios. I think those studios seem to be a lot more directly managed by EA, and so you can see a lot of things like the way BioWare handled Anthem. Now, that was a kind of a EA wanted us to do this or whatever. And then, Andromeda, how do you reconcile those things when a company like Respawn has then made a better single player game, whereas Mass Effect could not pull that off? So I think we have to treat these things on a case by case basis, because many of these publishing and big companies, they do things that, are quite, in my opinion, unfair to gamers and to the gaming scene. But then when you have a gem like this, and just because they're under EA doesn't mean that they're going to be under EA forever. They're probably going to one day, pack up their stuff, make enough and save enough money and say, hey, we're going to go on our own. And if they do that, I feel like that's probably going to give them a lot more credence, just like Bungie left Activision and now Bungie is like some kind of hero. So we have to look at things from that perspective, and that's how I look at it. And so that's why I played this game, and that's why I will play games that this studio makes if I like them. I don't like Apex Legends, but a game like this, definitely something that I want to play because I do respect this studio and their work. So that's pretty much my spiel for this game. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. I appreciate your support so far on the channel. You guys are really, really cool. You watch the videos, you respond, you leave comments. So I want you guys to just leave comments. Let me know what you feel in the comment section, and I guess I'll see you in my next video. Peace. Peace.